All right, let's do the Good Life meditation for today, the 27th day of November, 2021. The Good Life meditation, that is a daily exercise that I do to remind myself of my objectives and principles that I strive to pursue in the course of the day. I recite this every morning aloud, typically, usually not in front of a camera. I've been doing this for many years now. It's got two forms. There's kind of a rote way of doing it, kind of almost like saying reciting a poem, and then there's a more deliberate way to do it. So let's do this. The first objective is the objective to make a note to be always ready to die, to have all of my affairs in order, my finances, my relationships with my family and friends, and all of the things that I want to do that would constitute my life's work, basically. Anything that I want to write or paint or say or whatever the case may be, my art, so to speak. So that's the first thing, is to have those things in order so that if I die today, I've left my estate and my art intact, right? And my relationships intact, or at least, settled to a degree. The next objective is the good and effective use of time. That is, namely, to not waste time, not to fritter these moments away, but to make good use of them. It's so easy just to let time pass by, isn't it? Just to fill our moments with nothing, letting them just slip through our fingers. What was it? Who was it that died who said, so much wasted time? Can't quite remember. The next objective is the development and maintenance of good and sound life principles. That's exactly these objectives and principles that I'm reciting right now. To work to first develop these and then to maintain them over time. That requires examining them daily, pulling them out, and asking myself if they're sound. The next objective is to cultivate good emotional reactions. To reach the point of my life and my mind that the rising and falling tide of life doesn't cause me to plunge into, it may cause me to plunge into depression or to flight to heights of ecstasy, but my outward appearance and manner will belay a little of that. I'll be rather stoic throughout. That's the goal, is to basically control my emotional expression. The next one is to perform good actions, to simply do good things throughout the day, whatever that may be, holding a door open, picking up a piece of trash, saying thank you and please. The next is to be always ready to die. Be always ready to die. Make good and effective use of time. Cultivate good emotional reactions. Perform good actions. Oh yes, recognize true limits and true opportunity. Remember what is within my scope of ability and what is not. There's things that I simply cannot do anymore. There were always things that I was never able to do. I'm not very good at math, but words come a little easier for me. So recognizing a limit and an opportunity. And then the next one, last objective, is to do one thing slowly, to always just pursue one thing at a time, and to do that slowly and deliberately. I'm trying to do that right now. And as I recite these objectives and principles, and that was the last of the 7 objectives. Now as I go into the principles, I'm going to make a little more effort, in keeping with the objective of one thing slowly, to recite each principle and then to put a little bit of a margin, a space between each one, a little buffer, to state the principle, if I can elaborate it in verbally in kind of bold lettering, describe it, and then have a little space. State the next principle, describe it, and have a little space. And as I take a segue between the two sections, objectives and principles, I'll have a sip of my coffee. The dogs are sleeping. I need to go get them some dog beds today. All right, let's begin our principles. I think there are, how many are there? 27? Oh, by the way, all of these objectives and principles can be found in my book, Going Alone. Also in the sequel, The Good Life, which elaborates these in more detail. How many are there? There are indeed 27. You can see that they're all listed, like I was saying before. Bold for the item, a description, and then a little bit of a buffer between them. This book is available on Amazon. You can also get it off of my website, goingalone.org. If you buy it from the website, you get it signed. All right. Let's do the principles. Principle number 1 is the principle of war. That is to be always at war with everything that I hold true, to not let my own principles lie in state, but to keep them active and moving and making sure that they're indeed fit. And I do that through the next principle. Principle number 2, the principle of reason. The principle of reason has 3 sub-principles. Those are honesty, objectivity, and doubt. Didn't mean to give you the finger there. Reason is the tool that I use to make sure that my principles are sound. And obviously by those sub-principles, honesty, objectivity, and doubt, I'm using an empirical test, right? I don't. There are no metaphysics that I can find in my philosophy here. These things have to demonstrate themselves to be real, practical, useful, and sound before I will accept them. That's how I perform the aforementioned war. The next principle is the principle of the homunculus. The homunculus is the little mortal who lives inside our heads. Each of us has one. Not really, but it's just a label that I give to the consciousness, which is kind of feels like a little. Doesn't it feel like a little person just behind the forehead, kind of peeking out through the eyes? I remind myself that the homunculus is just a part of me. It's like another bodily organ, like the liver or the spleen. Excuse me. Pardon me. The reason that's important, is I don't want to fool myself into thinking that the homunculus will survive my death. The homunculus is going down with me, just like the rest of me. So, sorry, no immortality, it appears. At least not, there's no good evidence or reason to think so. Wishful thinking is all that is. The next principle is the principle of the Anchorhold. The Anchorhold is like a rock that sticks above a churning sea or surrounding it. And we sit upon that rock, or we stand upon it, or we scream upon it, or whatever the case may be, and we're afraid of falling off and into the water and drowning. In the sea, sometimes the tide is low, at which time we feel a little safer because the water is further down. And sometimes the tide rises and gets kind of scared, frighteningly close to us. And that's when we're anxious and timid and tentative and all those words that describe the anxiety that churns inside. And sometimes the sea threatens to wash us off the rock. It churns and twists and all the like. I just not. Someone was visiting the website from somewhere. I didn't see where. So that's what happens. And I remind myself of that. Excuse me. Oh, I got a sticker down there. I got to take it off. This was a gift to me by the Ventura Fire Department. Isn't that cool? So I have to remind myself of that, so that when I'm having a rough day, I remind myself that the tide is high and the sea is stormy. All I have to do is wait it out. The thing that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to get off that rock, or when I do, it's going to be when I die. Again, more reminders of mortality, and more reminder that death is forever. And a reminder, and that causes me to remember to live now. The next principle is the principle of the home of good and evil. Imagine the home of good and evil as a you know what I had to do? I had to ask Emily to take her paintings and her drawings and have them put into little things and put them behind me on the wall. That'd be cool. I could just point to them as I do these. The home of good and evil is is the list of values that we have. It's our right and wrong. Maybe these principles and objectives could constitute the home of good and evil. It is the things by which we identify what constitutes virtue in a virtuous life. And I picture it kind of like written in chalk inside our head. And it's important that it's inside our head because it shows that these values, right and wrong, are not objective in the universe, but instead they're opinions that we hold. They are therefore subjective, but they do become objective when when two or more people agree about what constitutes right or wrong. If you and I both agree and have evidence to show that drinking battery acid is not a healthy thing to do, then we have an objective standard that we can agree to, that not drinking battery acids is a good idea. So that's the home of good and evil. It's just our list, our catalog of right and wrong, remembering always that that does go away with us as well, because our opinions die with us. After the home of good and evil comes purpose. There are the principle of purpose. There are three purpose in my worldview. One is biology, that is to propagate, to have make more of ourselves, have children, continue the species. The second one is virtue, to live a virtual life, that is virtue as defined by the aforementioned principles that the homunculus guards within the home of good, within their head. And then mission. Mission is whatever mission we might choose for our lives to do. Right now, my mission is doing this, sharing the good life, sharing the principles of the good life, principles that, when abided and lived, can produce a relatively good life. And I can tell you that is the truth. It does work. Not perfectly, but it works. Excuse me. So that was purpose. Next, that was the first 5 principles. Now let's do another 5. The first is, the number 6 is the atomic principle. The idea that everything in the universe is made of bits and pieces, atoms and molecules and compounds, etc. And that these are constantly changing and flowing and modifying. You know, stars create atoms or create elements through their thermonuclear reaction from basic atoms. You and I are each a composite of atoms, you know, forming molecules, forming compounds, forming organs, forming us. And this is going to very soon, for all of us, very, very soon, we will die. And our constituent parts, although we will die, this consciousness, this instantiation of self within ourselves, which is an emergent state, an emergent property of our physical being, will die with us as well. And given that there is no soul, it's not going anywhere. It's just going to wink out. It'll be just like it was before you were born. But all the stuff that we are will dissolve away, rot, burn, whatever the case may be, biodegrade if you're so lucky. And then that's just a reminder, the atomic principle, a reminder that death is coming. There's no escape. There's no way for the homunculus to escape from this cranium. It's going down with the ship, and we might as well play on as we go down, and before our bodies become something else. Next is after the atomic principle is the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature. You can look at things and they have a certain way of being, the way that they are. And it's helpful to understand what that is, so that you can deal better with whatever it is or whoever it is or whatever organization or institution or substance or whatever the case may be. Let's pick, for example, an inanimate object today. Let's pick a sidewalk. It's the nature of a sidewalk to be relatively flat, to lead somewhere, to usually front residences or businesses, to usually have intersections where it crosses over driveways or reaches an end at a curb and may have to just drop down into a crosswalk that's crossing a street. Sidewalks have the nature of having cracks, which may break your mother's back if you step on them. They also have the nature of sometimes having tree roots dislodge the concrete, causing gaps or edges to appear, and you can trip over those. It's really dangerous on a skateboard, particularly. Sidewalks can be hot. Sidewalks can have ants on them that you might not want to step on. They can be covered in leaves. It's a good place for walking dogs. You get the idea, right? By examining the nature, by understanding the nature of something, we're better able to deal with it as it is, and less likely to be surprised and caught off guard when it does something that it does. Like, for example, if I trip over a crack in a side, trip over a gap, what do you call it, a ledge in a sidewalk caused by a tree root. If I trip over it, I'm less likely to stumble and get all pissed off. If I simply recognize, but that's the nature of sidewalks. It's also the nature of humans to miss those things sometimes and trip. And I can then be better able to maintain my equanimity, my balance, and my self-control, and not fly off the handle, which harkens back to principle number, was it 3? Good emotional reactions, or 4, good emotion. Objective number 4, the development and maintenance of good. No, that was the cultivation of good emotional reactions. I'm going too fast. Pause. The next principle is the principle of the pirate ride. Someone's sending me an email. The principle of distraction. The principle of the pirate ride. The pirate ride is simply a suggestion that basically we don't have free will. The free will is an illusion. Hold your horses, Kurt. Free will is an illusion. So, the fact that I'm going to choose eggs over pancakes for breakfast this morning. That's just chicken soup. What are you talking about, Kurt? I can choose any damn thing I want. Yeah, you can, but I'm going to suggest that you would not have made any other choice other than the one you did. That, yeah, you're right. You can entertain a whole host of variety of options, but whatever option you choose, that was the one you were going to choose. Well, I said it wrong. That's the one you couldn't. It's wrong to say that's the one you're going to choose, because that sounds like fatalism, and I don't mean fatalism. What I mean to say is you would not have chosen anything other than that one. What that means is that you're kind of our biases and our trajectory, send us in the direction of certain paths. I like the image of dominoes falling, right? And all the past precedent of the universe up until this moment right now were dominoes that were following since the Big Bang and striking me just now. And it may appear that I can go here, here, and here, but really, in fact, I'm going straight forward because of the inertia and the precedent of the past. I don't think, therefore, that we have free will. I believe that our agency is kind of an illusion in a way. Very, very elegant illusion, but an illusion nonetheless. Now, am I convinced of this? Hell no. Do I live as though I have free will? Yes. Is my life better when I those brief moments when I remind myself that I don't think we have free will? Kind of. It's kind of like, I imagine it would be the same feeling that a religious person has, someone that believes in God, who, when they think, God's in control, God's got this, God's I'm the co-pilot, God's got the thing, right? And you get the feel, I can relax. And the same feeling that you have when you're a little kid, right? And mom and dad have got things covered, right? If I as an atheist, I can't turn to God. My parents are I'm an adult. I can't turn to my parents anymore. But if I can turn to the idea that free will is an illusion, and that I'm just part of this long chain of events, then it's kind of that same thing, right? Am I fooling myself? I don't think so. Do I sound convinced? Probably not. Can I prove this? No. Kurt, this sounds a little bit like something called faith. Yeah, I take it on faith. So this is probably the weakest point that so far that I've been able to find in my good life philosophy. Normally, if I find something in my philosophy that appears to be founded on faith, I toss it right out. This one I haven't tossed out because it's compelling. It's not. I haven't tossed it out because it's reassuring. That's not a good reason to toss it out. I haven't tossed it out because I'm compelled to think that it's true. It makes sense to me, even though I can't prove it. I'm willing to be shown otherwise. So those of you that are religious people that hold on to your faith hold on to your belief because of faith, I'm right there with you. Hallelujah, brother. I've got my faith too. Although curiously, my faith, if what I have faith in, if you're from the Christian perspective, if what I have faith in is true, then it pulls the rug out of what you have faith in, right? Because if free will is an illusion, then this idea of original sin is kind of tossed out the window as well, isn't it? Interesting. So it'd be interesting to find out which of us is right. Excuse me. Okay, the next one is the next principle after the pirate ride. And why do I call it a pirate ride? Well, I imagine, you remember on Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland, if you've ever been there, how the automatons are up there doing their thing. Our matey, our matey. You've heard me say this before. And we're just like that, right? We're a more compelling automaton. We're a more convincing automaton robot. Then after the pirate ride comes the wisdom, the principle of wisdom, which sounds very highfalutin, right? Oh, the principle of wisdom, aren't we so wise? The man likens himself a philosopher. No, I simply recognize that the word wisdom is a great describer for what I want to say, because I see wisdom as being the remembrance of past experience, and then the fortitude, the strength to not make those same mistakes again. That's wise, right? Because it's not very wise if you make mistakes and then you keep repeating that mistake. That's not very wise. That means you have the experience and the knowledge, but you don't have the fortitude to stop it, right? And it's quite another thing to have great fortitude and great force of will, but not enough experience in life to know better. That's what the military service does, right? In boot training, in boot camp, they take young adults who don't have a lot of experience yet, and they attempt to inculcate them with that experience through drill and through obedience to chain of command, by which the wisdom the maturity, hopefully, of the generals is filtered down through the chain of command and given to the young soldiers, who then have the fortitude through discipline to execute it through. The trick is to get that into ourselves, right? To live our lives such that we can collect the maturity of experience, and then have the fortitude to not make those same mistakes again. Like I once lost $1 million, and I don't know that I'll have a chance to lose another $1 million, but it would be wise of me. It would be wise. It would be a representative of wisdom if I can not lose another $1 million, right? Get the million and find a way to keep it. Have the fortitude to do the right thing, not make the same mistake. That's the principle of wisdom, maturity, and fortitude. Yeah. Next is the principle of so strange. It's easier when I rattle these off in my head. Maturity or wisdom, and then why do I feel like I'm going to get this wrong? Do I want to look it up? Okay, wait. Atomic principle, principle of nature, the pirate ride, wisdom, and then the social principle. The social principle is simply my reminder that though I wrote a book called Going Alone is not the objective. Going alone is the means to the end. The end being the social life, the life of friends and family and community, etc. Is this something I'm working on? You betcha. I'm pretty good on the family side, right? I mean, I have a family, and I think I've been the best father I could, and I continue to be the best father and husband that I can be. and brother, son, etc. Am I perfect at it? No, by no means. But I recognize by virtue of having gone alone that all that's out there is the great indifference, the big emptiness of the universe. That if we want to have something meaningful in our lives, excuse me, something deep and meaningful, it's good to do that with people. So that's why the social principle reminds me of that. After the social principle comes the principle of public speaking. That is to use, to be very careful with my language, to use few words, carefully chosen words, deliberate words, well understood words. This is I'm the guy that posts the vocabulary posts on social media with all this exotic vocabulary, but I don't use those words, right? I mean, I like to read books from antiquity. Writing in this book is 250 years old. Every one of the little, you can see here, every one of the little pink marks right there. There's one there. Here's another one there, right there. These are words that I don't know, right? Like, what is main honest? Or that's a phrase. What does main honest mean? Or what does eremitical? Well, actually, I know what that means. I think it's like a hermit, right? What does that mean? Or what does dolorous mean? Or vox viva, which is Latin, But when these guys were using Latin, it was always interesting. Or portmanteau. I don't know what these things mean. So when I encounter them in my reading, which is often, I often encounter these words, I write them. I like to make a little social media post to help me remember it. Not that I will ever speak it. In fact, I'm not going to say portmanteau to anybody. Sound like a pretentious ass. But the next time I encounter in my reading, I'll remember maybe what it is. So it's kind of fun that way. So that's what I mean by in public speaking, to use words that are few words, carefully chosen words, deliberate words, understood words. I should add that, and also to always speak about other people, as though those people can hear exactly what I'm saying about them, so that I can mainly to avoid gossiping about people. Because if they were sitting there right there with us, I wouldn't say the things that I would say when they're not there necessarily. It's just I'm not a fan of gossip. Pardon me, I don't know where all this is coming from. Ugh. Okay, public speaking. Next is the principle, very important principle, the principle of temperance, to basically control my consumption. And that's temperance, to control consumption of work and play, food, drink, sex, whatever you want, right? Just within moderation of all things. And I think that my belly kind of is a good emblem about how well I'm either doing or failing with that regard. Food, I too tend to like to eat too much sometimes. And also temperance in terms of exercise, to not overdo it there too. There's also kind of an interior part, tempered thought as well, and tempered expression. Comes back to public speaking. Okay, the next one is the Feast of Offal, speaking of food. Offal is the waste of the byproduct of butchery work, right? Where you cut up a pig, and the stuff that you don't keep, you make into sausage, right? That's the offal, right? Or you toss out. You and I have offal in our life, right? In our cerebral life, right? It's the part of us that gets upset. It's the part of us that frets and fusses, and it's the useless byproduct of worry, right? Or maybe it's useful in some way, just don't perceive it yet. The problem is that we have a tendency sometimes to spew this out, right? Remember the principle of or the objective of good emotional reactions. When I fail in that objective and I spew out my emotions and the road rage and I honk my horn and you fine, screw you, and I go around the guy and flip him off and all that stuff, and he's like, geez Louise, Now he's a little upset, so I've kind of thrown out my offal, the waste, the byproduct of my mind out into the world, and made him all upset, or made him mad, made honking his horn now, and he's like, and I just pass it. He consumed it, right? I threw out my waste and he consumed it, the guy in the other car. And now he's upset. That's why it's a feast. We're like gobbling up one another's waste, right? And now he's driving to work and his morning's shot, and he gets to work and he walks in and he talks to his coworker. Good morning, Frank. Oh yeah, screw you. Yeah, why is it good, right? He's all upset, and now he's like, well, then the person that was at the office that talked to Frank that was in a good mood, then is like, geez, well, what's biting him? Frank's an asshole this morning, right? And now she goes to the break room to get her coffee and says, hey, but you want a donut? And she's kind of in a foul mood. Who took the sprinkles, right? You see how it just passes one on to the other. So this principle is my reminder to not engage in that activity. One, to try to control my emotions, to not spew that out in the first place. And two, when I see others spewing it out, to try not to consume it myself. So here, we're in the new area where I live, I've noticed that there's a lot more aggressive driving here than there was in Orange County. I'm here in Riverside County now. And I'm making a deliberate effort to not engage in that, right? I normally don't, but when I get someone behind me that's aggressive on a 2-lane road, I'll pull to the side and let them pass safely, rather than enforcing my brake pedal upon them. It was as I may have wanted to do in my youth. The principle of maturity, right? Principle of wisdom. Excuse me. Okay, so now on to, we thought we spent a long time on the Feast of Offal, but that's an important one. The next, and I think, here we go. The next is the principle of distraction. Distracting ourselves with all of this. It's so easy to distract ourselves with work and play and dogs and TV and buying stuff and holidays and grandkids and all this stuff. And we fill our lives up. And then one day we get old and we're like, oh, the doctor calls us in and says, I'm sorry to say, but you've got cancer. And you've probably got 6 months to live. And we're back to that phrase I said before, oh, so much, what the hell did I do with my life? Right? I remember I was 20 and I had my whole life ahead of me. I was going to do this, that, and the other thing. And now I'm going to be dead in 6 months. And what did I fill all the time with? Now, it doesn't mean that those things aren't good. It doesn't mean that filling your time with family is bad in many ways. But filling your time with maybe, TV, reruns. I've got something against reruns for some reason. I mean, really, is that how you want to spend your time? Maybe you do. If that's how you want to spend your time, then good for you. Not how I want to spend my time. I would rather spend my time doing more useful, what I would consider more useful or engaging things that stir me inside. Now, in the long run, does it really matter whether we watched reruns or whether we did something else, wrote a book or did something artistic or, learned some skill or whatever? Nah, it doesn't really matter. But in a way, it kind of does, but it doesn't. So, distraction, right? So I try not to spend my life distracting myself with things. And one of the things that we do try to distract ourselves from is what I call the great indifference. That's the next principle. The principle is called agency and the great indifference. And it is my reminder that, you want to come up here? Come on. The dogs want to get fed. I took them out for a walk already, but they're looking at me like, come on, I'll feed you in just a sec. We're almost done. The great indifference is that the big, awful empty. You got a little glimpse of it right here on the cover of my book. Come on. And we try to distract ourselves. We don't want to see that because it's a reminder to us that God, if God is real, he's either dead or hiding and doesn't seem to give a damn. And if you tell yourself otherwise, you good luck with that faith. But I've got my own faith too. So when we face that, it's a sobering thing, especially when we face it, it's a sobering time thing at any time. So watch out. It's worthwhile though, I think so, because it's a very great catalyst to action. So after the agency and the great indifference comes the best seat in the house. Simply, I'm going to speed up now a little bit because my dogs want to get fed. Simply a reminder to not want to be anyone else, be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, but to be okay with who I am, where I am right now, doing just this. That's the best seat in the house. After that comes the Path of Wildness. That's the next principle. The Path of Wildness is a principle that says that that sometimes we have to proceed in life, we have to move forward through our uncertainty into seemingly dangerous, uncertain territory that may in fact be a mistake. But there's value in moving forward. And I like to summarize it with a following little poem. The Path of Wildness, it's easy to find. The course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. Now I'm going to kind of remember I said before when I started that I kind of have a kind of a rote mode for this, where I can kind of just say everything and just get it out real quick. I'm going to go into that mode right now so I can finish this up and get my dogs fed. So after the Path of Wildness comes the the risk of avoiding risk. There's deep level and surface level risks of life. Next comes the sin and damnation, and there are 6 sins in my worldview. Let's see if I can get these right because I just changed them. Those are hope, credulity, faith, superstition, dogma, and authority. Those are the sins, and the damnation part comes from if we execute those sins, we live in a life of potentially damnation in the here and now, believing things that may or may not be true. The next is the principle of sin and damnation of the great life adventure, the one or more events in life that become the kind of the showcase piece of our life, the thing that we remember, that we rely on, the stories that we retell in our old age, right? The centerpiece event of life. After that is the season of philosophy, a time to record what we've learned along the way. Then comes the bullseye aim, trying to hit the mark, but usually missing by some degree. Then comes the agency and the great arena and utility. The uphill climb. The uphill climb. Life is a steady uphill climb until we get to the top or we die. Well, there is no top. It's just a steady uphill climb. After that comes the agency and the great indifference. Life is like arena and utility. I said I'd do this if I wrote it. It's easier, but I'm messing it all up. So arena and utility. Life is an arena for the practice and execution of our objectives and principles so that we can learn and grow and enjoy and experience and suffer and bear that suffering. And the tools that we have along the way are whatever principles that we have. And you've just about seen my list, and whatever principles you have for your life. And then the last one is nothing is enough. Yeah, less is more in many cases. Nothing. It's good to be satisfied with very little sometimes, and it's amazing how at peace we can be, especially if we can be at peace. And with that, that's the end. So I wish you all the best. Make it a great day. I'm going to go feed my dogs right now and spend some time playing with them. Soon my wife will get up. We're going to go out and have some breakfast somewhere. Go find some place here in our new community of Menifee that we're going to have breakfast together. Although, no, wait, we can't because the guys are coming this morning to deliver the TV between 7 and noon. So we have to stay here. What shall we do? We'll work it out. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Remember, be safe, but not too safe.